All right, Alexis, I like to start with your story, then we'll see where it goes. All unscripted beyond this, but how did you accidentally fall into franchising? What's your franchise accidental story?
So I don't know that I would call it accidental. It's very intentional for me. So I have a bachelor's degree in hospitality management from the Hilton College at University of Houston. And my husband and I spent 3.5 years in Dubai for his career. And while we were there, I got a master's from the American University while I was still teaching. So my whole life, I've worked with children, educating children. I've worked with ages as young as 2 all the way up through 5th grade in elementary school. So when we moved back from Dubai, our son was 6 months old at the time, and we just bought a house in the Oak Forest area of Houston, and we were trying to find a school for him. And at the time, that was 10 years ago now, at the time, there were no schools that fit my admittedly high standards. So with a background in, like I said, hospitality, customer service, and also a master's in education, I was looking for some kind of a diamond in the rough. So every school that we sent him to, it was little things that, if I had my school, I would do this. If I had my own school, I would do that. And then my husband's like, let's just do it. Let's see what that looks like. So we are from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which is where Children's Lighthouse's franchise office is located. And actually one of their flagship schools is just around the corner from my mom's house. And it was, around the time we were looking at different brands to go into business with, we drove past it and it was like, we should look into Children's Lighthouse. And really and truly, from the first initial call that I had with anybody at the corporate office, it just felt right. They're still family owned and operated. They put a lot of beliefs in being family focused, which I really appreciated as a potential franchisee. But also for me as an education person, I really enjoyed I was really surprised and impressed by their curriculum. So it's very similar to other early learning schools where it's stream-based, science, technology, reading, engineering, arts, and mathematics. But the difference with Children's Lighthouse is they have a character value component. So every month the children are learning things like integrity, responsibility, honesty, really important life skills that make well-rounded little human beings. And so for me as a mom and an educator, that just really blew me away. And it was something that I really wanted to bring to the community where my school is. So I live in the same community where my school is. And so to me, it was really important to have that exemplary school because we didn't have anything like that at the time. So.
All right. Awesome first answer. Now I have a ton of things that I want to unpack, and now I gotta stay focused on what I want to unpack. So I'm going to start with one thing they said at the end, which, to be clear, this is a journey that is very similar to other franchise owners of Children's Lighthouse, in that in their community they saw a gap. They may have gone to some of the competitors, but something was missing, and so. Obviously, then you land on Children's Lighthouse and you say, okay, this checks the boxes. But to an outsider, other than hearing what you just said, how do you break through that in your marketplace? Because you know that you have the machine that is different than what exists, but to the outside world, you're probably pigeonholed in against them. Like how do you find a way to say, like, parents, you don't have to be left asking, what if a school had this?
Right. So for me, I'm the only urban Children's Lighthouse. All of the other schools are out in the suburbs. And so our school is located 15, 20 minutes from downtown Houston. And so I really did have to break the mold with that because no parents in my area knew the Children's Lighthouse brand. Also, on top of that, we opened during the pandemic. So I was trying to enroll families who their children had never been to anywhere else except for the pediatrician's office. And so it was really, so I feel like I was at an advantage because they didn't know Children's Lighthouse, right? So I had the opportunity to build a great reputation from the ground up. But also I think that being a mom, as well as trying to be as being an educator, trying to come into this community, that really helped because I feel like I was selling myself in addition to selling the brand. It's like I saw a gap in this area where we needed not only quality childcare, but quality early learning education, right? And so it's not just, we're not just warm bodies watching your babies all day. We are people that are trying to educate your children. And I always say to parents and to my team, we are dealing with parents' two most valuable assets, their children and their money. And so it's incredibly important for us to build that trust. And, when we get a tour that comes through the building and they're like, why would I enroll here and not, the school right next door? And it's like, you that's up to you. At the end of the day, you need to trust the people that you're leaving your child with for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Because, we're all trying to do the same thing. All the schools in the area are trying to care for your child and trying to educate your child, but it really comes down to the feeling you get when you come in the building. And so for us, yes, we are providing quality care and quality education, but it's even more than that. And I feel like that's where my hospitality background comes in. It's like the ambiance that you feel in the building and being greeted by name and good morning, or how was baseball last night, and have a great weekend, have fun on your trip, going that little bit of extra mile, I would say, to really make the school to home connection feel strong, because I think that at the end of the day is what gets parents to enroll and to stay. And that's what builds the brand, because like I said, my first initial call with Children's Lighthouse, I felt that with them. And so for me, that's important to the brand, that parents feel that as well, because that's really where our values lie, I feel like.
I love that answer. And I want to say a few comments. One is, like, the school to home, what a great message. Now we got to make sure Children's Lighthouse hears that line, because I think that's exactly what's right. And I think, like, even our own experience, we have a now 13 and 10-year-old, but when we were going through it, if I go back to those moments, I can remember what it smelled like, and it was not great.
Yes.
So at your home, you have guests coming over, you do your best to make sure your home doesn't smell poorly.
Right.
But
Bake some cookies.
But I think about, like, smell and sound and experience, and that I think that gets the benchmark set up. But then I've been very big on brands don't sell brands, people do.
Right.
What you just said was I also felt like I had to sell myself in hospitality. And then if you can do that to your staff, now you've built a team that can basically hold on to those same opinions or cultural structure, no matter who's giving the tour.
Right. Yeah. And so actually Children's Lighthouse does use that verbiage, just the school to home connection. We call it our pathways approach to learning. And there's a visual that we use with our parents that shows, the children coming from home to our infant and toddler program, and then, moving through the different curriculum programs that we have. So they really are, like I said, they have it nailed down.
Yeah, and I what I was meaning on that is, actually, I'd like that message for franchisees too, because it makes it very clear. And I know that we can do a better job of explaining, like, the point of differentiation, because on the franchise side, I'm curious, because you did work at one of the competitors. I was looking at your LinkedIn.
Yes.
When you were going through the process on the franchise side, did you look at other brands in the mix? How did that go?
Yes, I did. So I like I said, nothing for me is accidental. Everything is very intentional. And so I did do all of my due diligence. I researched all the brands. But in addition to the curriculum being different, Children's Lighthouse really trusts their franchisees to run their schools the way that they see fit. Obviously, we still have our quarterly visits from our business coach to ensure that quality standards are being met. But some other brands are incredibly prescriptive with the way that a school should be run, versus Children's Lighthouse. They believe if you are a franchisee, they've done their vetting process and they know they're not just hiring, or going into business with just anybody. And so they trust you to run your school. And so for me, that freedom was important, because again, I feel like I have a great background. My husband says my current role combines all of my passions. I'm very much the hospitable host. I'm always hosting friends at my house, and having birthday parties for my children and stuff. And so I feel like Children's Lighthouse trusts their franchisees to run their schools the way that we see fit for our market, so I am very connected in the community. Again, I live in this community. My children go to school at the elementary school here. And so I have a very strong pulse on what parents in this area are looking for. And that was important to me, to have that freedom. And a lot of other brands don't, like I said, don't really allow for that, which is fine. That works for a lot of brands and other franchisees, but I wanted to have a little bit more control than that.
Obviously when you're looking at investment this size, this is not for families who haven't built up some wealth. Did you consider doing it on your own? And did that idea ever enter your brain as a possibility?
Yeah, absolutely. So my master's is in curriculum administration, actually. So I do have all of the knowledge and skills to do it. Mm. But again, putting on my mom hat, I didn't think that most parents would buy into Alexis Legg curriculum that she just wrote, versus, I'm here with a brand who has research-backed curriculum. We have a portfolio of schools that are implementing the curriculum. And when things don't work, we are able to communicate with our corporate office about, hey, this little piece of the curriculum isn't the best for this age group. And Dr. Christie and her team are very quick to, look at the research, figure out what's best for the children. And so for me, like I said, as a mom, I knew that if I was in these parents' shoes, I would want something like that, something that's research-backed, something that has been tested and is best for children, not just something that, I wrote myself before opening the school. So I did consider it, and there are, I think it could have been just as fun, but I really wanted to sell the brand and to have that brand backing, because again, opening during the pandemic, I didn't know what I was doing. And so to be able to have a corporate office, like I said, that has a portfolio of schools that can give advice, not even just during the pandemic, but on regular situations, it's not just, this is my decision because I said so. It's, I've consulted my corporate office and the legal teams and everything else to make the best decision for the school. So I think at the end of the day, that was probably, maybe it was the best. For me, it was the best decision. I guess we'll say that.
Well, look, I look at, let's forget about franchise fee. Let's look at royalty as the fee that you pay. But even if you break that down for what you get from a resource standpoint, it would take a lot more financial resources to build that team around you. Now, obviously, you had a check mark because you could build a curriculum, right? But you look at all this real estate support. You could go down a million different rabbit holes. That's what I look at. I look at what is the composure of it. And so many people, I think when they're looking at a business opportunity, they look at royalty as, I got to pay this fee. It's like, no, that's a resource fee that allows you to now hopefully skip the line a little bit in business.
Yeah, for sure. Because I've never done this before, and yes, I have a little bit more experience than somebody who's brand new. But again, there are certain things that I encounter regularly that I haven't been through with my school being open almost 5 years. And so you're right. It is, to me, I look at it as the investment. It is a resource fee is a great way to describe it, because that's what it is. I have a team at my disposal. I can call, text, send an email, and get help, within 24 hours if I needed it,
Yeah, I'm aligned on that.
Yeah.
So from a business standpoint, I'm curious, because you have compassion for hospitality, passion for education. Clearly, that's part of what your backdrop was. At what point do you add passion for being an entrepreneur into the mix? And then how do you weigh all those different passions as you focus on your day-to-day?
So for me, I think it's just my personality. I'm very much an overachiever. I go all in on everything that I do. And so it's really kind of cool to be an entrepreneur, because I'm not afraid of a challenge. I'm not afraid of change. And so, this whole thing has been quite a roller coaster. I always describe it as my third child, all the blood, sweat, tears, sleepless nights, emotions, all the things. And so it's really fun to be able to lean into different aspects of it. My husband is a human resources professional, so he's able to help us with that. And I, really enjoy learning that aspect through him. And then, employee relations are fun as well. So to me, I view it as like a blank canvas, and every day is different, and I can learn something new. And my management team has multi-years of experience. My director has been doing this for more than 30 years. And so I learn a lot from her as well. But also I'm very well connected with other Children's Lighthouse owners, the owners of the schools in my area. And so I never miss an opportunity to learn something, because I don't claim to know everything, right? And I as a former educator, I'm very interested and passionate about learning. And so I feel like that really lends itself to this role, that I don't know everything. And I like that I don't know everything. I enjoy being able to learn new things every day and really just try to be the best that I can be at it.
Is that the governor for business? Meaning if that light goes out, like if you stop wanting to learn every day, you know that this journey is done? Or
I don't know if it's the governor for business, but I think it's definitely something that it might be applicable to all things in life. If you lose that passion, if you lose that will to want to continue to do it, then yeah, absolutely. But I think the great part about this role is, even if there's a tough day, I know that tomorrow's a different day, and I can, rely on my team. If I need to take a day to recover from things that happened the day before, I have a team that runs the school, which, I can lean into them. But also too, children are great mood boosters. If I'm having a bad day or we've had a tough meeting, we go into that baby room and those babies are just smiling and happy to see you. Or you go into the 2-year-old classroom and they want to show you everything they're doing and they're just so excited. It really reinvigorates you. You realize that the world is bigger than the problems that you deal with on a day-to-day basis. And so I think working with children, like I said, it's invigorating. And if I have a tough day, they're there to cheer us up. And if they're happy, the parents are happy. And that's really why I got into this business, is to give families a reason to be happy and to look forward to learning and going to school every day.
I love that currency. This is a very simple story, but I play basketball on Sundays, and I brought my 10-year-old, and another guy brought his 5 and 4-year-old, and they're just running around, laughing, chasing each other. And I look at another guy, I go, look how simple life used to be. But it's more like that's the currency. You're around a reminder that we take things so seriously as we try to figure out adulting, and yet right around us is like, hey, calm down a little bit. It's okay.
Yeah, like I said, I can go into a 2-year-old classroom and they're like, Miss Alexis, look at my shirt. It has a fire truck on it. And they're just so excited about their t-shirt, and it melts away the stress, really and truly, because they are pure joy encapsulated. They're just, and I think that helps me, like I said, when things get hard, because it's business and it's not easy, and every day is different and there's always a challenge. But like I said, at the end of the day, it's for the kids. And so I having that reminder in the building is definitely helpful.
Okay. So you said I go all in when I do something. So now you're all in on this franchise side.
Yes.
Are you thinking about growth? Are you thinking about scale? Where does your brain go now? Because if you're so committed into it, again, it's perfectly fine for a franchisee, especially at this scale, to get in and say, I would just like one unit. And then there's others that say, okay, how do I build up the portfolio? How do I press on the pedal? Where do you stand in that metric?
I've been having that conversation with myself and my husband since the day we opened this school. So what I've learned is timing is everything, and commercial real estate kind of moves at a slower pace than the rest of the world. And so it's in the works. We have signed another franchise agreement with Children's Lighthouse, meaning we do intend to open another location. But for me, it's finding the right market, and making sure that it is an area where early childhood education is valued, because there are, parts of the city where people just want a place for their child to be taken care of. And I think that there is a certain population that wants their education for their child, because I recognize we're not the cheapest in the area, but I do believe that there is value there, and the parents that are at my school agree. And so I think that it's important to find that right market, because like I said, we're not the cheapest in the industry, but there's value there. Our curriculum is very robust, and our relational care procedures are very endearing and warming to children. And so I think, like I said, it's just finding the right market for me. But yes, we are. It is in the works.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yes.
I had this moment years ago. Very wealthy neighbor of mine, older man. I was like, I'm going to use this as an opportunity. We're at some cocktail event, and we're just talking. I go, hey, I have a very important question for you because I think it's going to help me as I navigate my career and everything else. I said, what's the best financial advice you could give? And he goes, invest in your children's education when you can. Don't hold money till you die. And if you invest now, like that's going to give them a greater return later on in life. And it totally stuck with me. And it's obviously a mindset that someone has to have that mindset, and it's got to be fit for that community. And obviously the financial means have to be there. Right. But that's the mindset that I like. When I look at Children's Lighthouse, I go, this is an investment in my children, not now as an adult. And if I can give them this blessing now, then why not? And so I totally get what you're saying. Like, you got to find the right community that has kind of that same mindset too, right?
Right. Because I feel like when you're talking to them about curriculum, if that's not something that's important to them, then they're not going to choose to enroll at the school. But yeah, right. Like right now in Houston ISD for kindergarten, they're starting to give numerical grades. And so we have a bunch of our students that have graduated from our program and they've started kindergarten at elementary school, and they come back to us and say, you know, all the hard work that you guys went through really paid off for my kindergartner, because they're getting hundreds, 99s and hundreds on their grades. And they're so much further along than their peers. And I'm friends with a lot of teachers at the elementary school, and they frequently joke with me. They're like, I know which kids come from your school, you know, because they're so much more prepared for kindergarten. And that, I think that is important. But again, I place a high value on that because I'm a former educator, but not everybody does. So, yeah, I think investing in your child's education is very important.
There was a point where I got very close to buying a franchise. The probably negative. This is going to sound like a negative statement. I've been in franchising for 20 years and have not become a franchisee, and so there's something to that. And part of it is I'm very much an entrepreneur, so I'd be probably a really bad franchisee because I'd tell the franchisor everything that's wrong with the brand because I would want to fix it. But I was very close once. And before I went into the process, I was like, what is the most important question that I need to ask during due diligence? Because obviously I could talk with a franchisee and say, like, how are things going? And it could be all rosy. Yeah. And so the question that I asked was, would you do this again? And I watched, I didn't really care what the answer was. I was watching for body language, and I let the franchisor pick who I was going to do my due diligence with. And they picked these 3 franchisees, and I saw hesitation with all of them. Wow. And so I set that up to say, I'm reading your body language. You seem very positive on this business. And that's part of what, like, if someone's watching this, they're trying to read the room and say, is this an investment that's worthwhile? So as simple as the question is, would you do it again?
100%, I would do it again. I would be a little bit more. So again, I go all in, and I tend to be ever the optimist. I believe everything is wonderful, sunshine, rainbows. Everybody is a good person. And, you know, to a certain extent, I think that is good, and that has helped make me successful. But what I would say to somebody who's considering this is, it's not as easy as it looks. And it's, like I said, it's very much akin to having children. Some days are great and wonderful, and you see exactly why you decided to do this. And other days you're like, what am I doing? What have I done? This is crazy, you know? And so for me, I think if I were to do it again, I would be a little bit more cautiously optimistic, because I just went in thinking everything was going to be sunshine and rainbows. And I had done my due diligence, and I had talked to people that had told me it was going to be hard, but I think experiencing it yourself is different. And I just think like I said, when you're dealing with people in general, there's going to be ups and downs and highs and lows. And I think that that's just something that I failed to realize the scale, you know, because you're dealing with people's children and their money, and that can be incredibly sensitive and highly charged. And that's tough, you know, for me and for them, because this is my business, this is my passion, and it's tough. But yes, I would do it again, 100%. And I tell anybody else, you know, I talk to a lot of potential franchisees, and I tell them it's tough, you know, it's worth it. 100%, it is worth it, but it is tough.
I mean, it's interesting. I think franchising in general, and part of it is just any franchisor is trying to figure out, like, how do we convince someone to leave their career and invest their life savings into a business. And so some may oversell simplicity, but you could go down to a very low investment, call it a man in a van type business. And that's still going to be hard work because you have no staff. You are out there, you're doing the repairs or pool service, whatever you're doing.
Right.
And as you scale up, it multiplies because now you're a franchisee, you're part of a community, you still run a family, you're a part of your family. You have to take care of your staff, you got to take care of your parents, you got to take care of your children.
Right.
And I think it's actually more of an honest answer that if someone's looking to get into a business at this scale and think it's going to be easy, they're going to be out of their mind. They got to go into it saying it's hard, but I'm willing to put in the work for my family to build wealth for my family, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think, the difference between being a franchisee and being an employee of the school is the employees of the school can leave and that's it. That severs the tie. But for me, that's not it. My name is on the building. My name is attached to everything. And if all of my employees make mistakes, it lands on me at the end of the day. And I accept that responsibility. But at the end of the day, that is hard. That is a heavy responsibility. And I don't think it should be taken lightly. But what I would tell people is you get what you put into it. If you want to be successful and you put a lot of work and effort into it, you will be successful. If you're just looking for something to do during the day and you just, do your 8 hours, then, you'll be somewhat successful. But I think it's all about scale, right? So you get what you put into it. And for me, like I said, I go all in. And so maybe that's why I feel a lot more stress and a lot more responsibility, but I enjoy it.
I noticed something on your resume too, and this is my final question. It's that you went from teacher to owner.
Yes.
And so what I see is that you can dream big in a position that obviously you're making tremendous impact. All teachers make tremendous impact to those boots on the street. But the dream is possible. You've shown you can go from working for someone else in education to building this up. Does your staff see that? Do they see how far you've come in your career and your life? And do you see any motivation in them that maybe someday their dream can shift into, I'm going to purposely go into business for myself too?
Yes, I make it a point. So I enjoy training teachers. And so twice a year, my teachers have a professional development day. And I enjoy being the majority trainer for those sessions. And every single one of my management team members tells their story anytime we have one of these events, because I think it's important for the teachers to realize that you don't just show up and become the director of the school. Every single person on my management team started in an infant classroom or started in a toddler classroom or a 2-year-old classroom. And you work your way up. And I have told my story. And I think to your point, it does seem kind of crazy for me to go from classroom teacher to school owner. But I think it's like you said, it's all about taking a chance and realizing that anything is possible. And I think that's where finding the right franchise brand was important for me, because I wasn't going to jump into the deep end with just anybody and jump off of this cliff, so to speak, for any brand or for any, franchise support center. And so doing all of the due diligence and research that I did and finding that Children's Lighthouse gives you everything and gives you the playbook. And I know that other brands do too as well. But for me, it was that trust and finding a brand that I trust to work with, because it was our life savings and it was me taking a risk, and it didn't just affect me. It wasn't just a decision made in a bubble. It affected my children. So my son was 2 at the time. My daughter was a baby, and my husband's career was, taking off. And so it was it was a big risk. But I think like I said, it was very important for me to find the brand. But yes, I do tell the story to my teachers all the time about all of the trials and errors, and they see me at the school regularly. My children still attend my school, and so they see me there at least once a day, and I'm there as much as I can be to check in on them, say hi, ask how their classrooms are. Like I said, I love going in and holding babies. I'll change a diaper. I'm not afraid of that. So I think that helps the morale in our school, that they see that I'm not just a figurehead, that I'm not just, the person who signs their checks kind of thing. I am still invested emotionally and physically into the building.
I love it. Well, Alexis, what a wonderful story. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I'm looking forward to hearing how Unit 2 goes. So we'll have to do this again when you get a little bit further down the line. But
yeah,
I appreciate this. I'm grateful for the time that you gave me. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Nick. Have a great rest of your day.
For Alexis, I'm Nick. This was another episode of Meet the Z. Take care.